Hey, it's Clay. Welcome to another League of Legends video. This is going to be another replay analysis. This time we're going to be following this Riven player. Now, I've been trying to get a little bit more background information on what exactly the replays are so you guys can understand. This, I believe, has got to be a normal match because there is a mirror matchup, which will be a little interesting. Oh, sorry, I want to mess with the sound a little bit. And so, yeah, that's okay, though. We will take it either any which way. And so, yeah, I think I maybe have said this in my previous one, but it bears repeating. If you're interested in having your replays appear on this show, I very much welcome you to send them to clayplaysreplayanalysis@gmail.com. I have had a very, very good success with replays using na.op.gg's recording client, and then I've also had a lot of success with people using Baron Replay. Those have been very, very good. LOL Replay was the program I initially was aware of for this type of thing and recommended, but it's been extremely buggy. And so, man, so much Riven right now. But yeah, LOL Replay has been really buggy, which has very much annoyed me. So I'm going to have to no longer recommend that. I can still take replays, I just can't guarantee that they'll work, which is kind of sad. So I'd hate for you guys to send me some replays hoping for feedback, and then if I can't get it to work, it's just kind of annoying for everybody. So, if you can, try to use some of those other programs. But other than that, I think I got some comments before on, because my first two videos were on AD carry. That was actually a little bit of coincidence, not intentional. AD carry is probably my best role, in the role where I probably have the most insight to share, and that may reflect, but I am definitely going to be doing all types of, champions and lanes and matchups and skill levels and all those types of things. Also to say this too, is I think that it is very beneficial. Wow, so much Riven. I think it's very beneficial if you send me a replay that is close, like a game that is a little bit more competitive. Some of the games I've received are just like these total stomps and blowouts, and we've all had those types of games, I'm sure. But those are a little bit harder for me to provide commentary and feedback, just because, I mean, you're just so far ahead, and it's clear that you've so outclassed your opponent, and you're winning that way. I think that it would be more helpful to send in a replay where the game is in the balance, and the plays you make, the decisions you make, the strategies you employ are the ones that win you the game, not just because you are so clearly outclassing your opponent. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this replay. I think I might back up a little bit and talk about, there was an all-in that happened. So I guess first and foremost, let me just talk a little bit about mirror matchups in general. So mirror matchups are kind of a weird thing that you only see in normals. But the idea with mirror matchups is that they're weird because you have these two champions that do the exact same thing, and so you're kind of like, who can do the same thing better, basically. It's just this kind of weird dynamic. So, and they tend to snowball really, really hard because, if you have the same tools as your opponent, it can be a little tricky to outplay them. But I think so far you've been doing quite well in this mirror matchup. One thing, I guess a little thing I'll comment on, is the starting items is Longsword versus Doran's Blade. I'm not going to say this is a hard and fast rule, but my kind of trend recently has been leaning towards starting with a Longsword and not necessarily a Doran's Blade on a melee champion, and here's why. For most melee champions, getting in range to auto-attack is always going to be a little bit risky. Now, against another melee champion, this is less true, but compared to like an AD carry, where even when you're behind and you're getting pushed in, you're still going to be auto-attacking creeps quite a bit, and so you can get a lot of that lifesteal. Somebody like Riven, on the other hand, is, you're ahead, so you're doing well, but I think that the lifesteal component of Doran's Blade isn't quite as valuable and effective. Now, you are getting 70 health, but you are missing 10 attack damage. So I guess in my mind, I kind of would favor starting Longsword instead of Doran's Blade, but that's just kind of a very minor tidbit thing. Another thing to keep in mind, and one of the things you did well earlier, ooh, nice, that was a good trade right there, is you did a nice job of taking advantage of timing windows. So in a matchup, like especially against Riven, I'm guessing that that was a mistake. Probably didn't mean to use your ulti there. I'm going to assume that was a misclick. Happens to us all. But anyway, so timing windows, especially against somebody like Riven. Oh, interesting. Is she really going to get you here? I think you can maybe turn this. Nice. Okay. Well played there. So that was very interesting. I think that the reasoning for that Riven to go all in there was because you had used your ult accidentally. So even though she had significantly less health, she did have Ignite. And so she went all in. That's kind of what I'm talking about here with these timing windows. You know, Riven is very, very much dependent on having her cooldowns available, specifically with her Q. You know, when her Q is up, Riven is a lot more dangerous than when it's down. So if one of the things about playing against a Riven is you always want to force Riven into using a couple of her Qs to simply get to you. You know, the worst thing you can do is stand toe-to-toe and let her use all three of her Qs as both damage and traveling distance. So keep that in mind whenever you're playing against a Riven, or I guess in any mirror matchup. It's very much dependent on having cooldowns available. Okay, so we have another interesting distinction in item choices. The opposing Riven went for a Brutalizer, while you went for a little bit more lifesteal, which I think is very interesting. So I guess if I were to kind of analyze these two item choices, first of all, let's look at them on a flat AD. You have about 10 more flat attack damage, which is nice. But this Riven has Armor Pen and CDR. So, given that, I would say that, okay, good. That was okay. You did fine there, just because I think you have a little bit more of an item advantage. I think it could have been a little bit cleaner, though. Let's watch this one more time. I would have preferred, you know, after you get done, use your E, use your W, your Qs. Now, right here, I would just prefer you to back out. You know, continuing to stand toe-to-toe and taking that last Q and that last auto from her, I think was a little bit of a mistake. I would have preferred you maybe back out a little bit. That trade could have gone a little bit better. You know, that's what I'm talking about with the timing windows. When your cooldowns are up, you want to go aggressive, and when they're down, you need to be cautious. Oh, interesting kick by the Lee Sin there. Alright, looks like you decided to go all in here. And you pick up the kill. Good flash to get away from Riven's CC. That was fine. Don't really have any complaints there. But again, to reiterate my point, you really, really, really need to be aware of cooldowns. You know, hyper aware. You know, keep in your head, you know, almost a like a guesstimate of what the other Riven's cooldowns are at, just because it's so important to know where she's at and when she can go aggressive against you. Now, to finish what I was saying about itemization, when I see this other Riven go for Brutalizer, I think that's going to make her pretty bursty. So maybe would have liked you to push this wave out before you base, just so it gets to tower, but I think this will be okay. You just don't necessarily want it to be frozen in this weird place. Yeah, I think it is going to push against you, so little thing. But with your item choices, you are much better in more of a sustained fight. You've got more lifesteal, you've got more total attack damage. So I think, you know, it's very much going to depend on how the fights play out to see whose item choice is superior. So, I guess keep that in mind. Now you definitely have a big item advantage. You know, you're about 40 creeps ahead. Just ahead in pretty much every single way. So I really like this play right here, deciding to roam. That was really smart, and nice job picking up that kill. Maybe you could use your ult just a little bit sooner. If you're going to use your ultimate, it's best to use it, you know, right away, so you can get the bonus attack damage in range for all of your abilities. You know, the execute portion of her ultimate is good, but I think sometimes people undervalue how powerful the other parts of her ultimate are. You know, Riven's ultimate does so much good things, You know, giving her 20%, another 28 attack damage. That's a lot, and increasing the range. So don't undervalue that. I really like that you've roamed, not just to pick up the kill, but to pick up this tower. You know, this is very, very good objective-focused play, something that I think, you know, a lot of players at lower elos get flack for, not doing very well. I kind of wonder if the other Riven has rage quit. Nope, she's around. But that was really good. You've taken your advantage and you've tried to spread it across the map. That's one of the best things that you can do in solo queue. Even though this is a normals match, I'm going to pretend as if we're learning for solo queue. You know, do whatever you can do to take the advantage you've gained in your lane and spread it across the map to pick up kills elsewhere is always really nice. Okay. Kind of got caught with your pants down a little bit there. I think I'm going to just watch this one more time. Okay, so we've got 3 in the area. Lysandra and Thresher at base. We are deep in enemy territory, so I think that if you're going to go aggressive, it's going to be really important that you pick up a kill very quickly. So we go, and another thing too is look at the number of wards on the map. Is you don't have any wards in their jungle, you don't have any wards over here, so there, you know, the vision that you have isn't really going to help you very much in determining how aggressive you can be. One of the things I might have said in my other video, but vision is a very, very important factor with decision making. If you have good vision, it allows you to make really good decisions, informed decisions. Right now you're just kind of guessing and hoping that there aren't going to be a lot of people here. Go for the brand, use your ignite, hoping to pick up the kill, but I think you get stunned and the enemy Riven, it kind of zones you out, and then you get picked off. So I think the main problem there was just simply that you didn't have the vision to back up the level of aggression that you were at, or the team, I guess, back up to support the level of aggression that you decided to go for. Looks like the Riven is feeding. Alright, well, so be it. But still, I think there's some things we can take away, you know, even despite this. You know, understanding the way the itemization plays in, you know, understanding when you're powerful, understanding cooldown, you know, cooldown trades are super important. All those things will definitely be impactful. I like the CDR boots. CDR boots are really good on Riven. They both have an offensive and defensive value for her, just because she gets so much utility out of CDR. One thing I'm curious to see is what you're going to turn this Ruby Crystal into. Maybe Black Cleaver. My preference would be to not get a Ruby Crystal at this point. Alright, pretty clear that this Riven is straight up trolling, but she did get dumped on in lane, so I guess that will happen. She is going to be pretty useless. But anyways, about Riven and health, Riven actually doesn't really scale that well with flat health. She scales a lot better with resistances, and then flat AD and armor pen. CDR, those are really these stats. And the reason why Riven likes resistances so much is because, okay, good job reacting to that ward. Looks like Lee kicked you to safety. Alright. Interesting choice. I think you could maybe turn on... Ooh. I would have liked to see you go super aggressive on that Azir. I think you could have popped him with your full combo. But anyways, to finish my point, flat health doesn't really do anything for Riven. Resistances are way better. She has a shield, and any resistances you get will scale with the shield, while if you just get a bunch of health, it'll just scale additively instead of multiplicatively, if that makes any sense, if you know anything about math. You know, just think about, you know, 2 plus 2 is 4, but, you know, or 2 plus 3 is 5, but 2 times 3 is 6, so that was really confusing. But basically, whenever you multiply things together, you're going to get a lot more for your bang for your buck. And when you get a bunch of resistances will get applied to the shield as well, whereas if you just have health, that will add to the shield. Just going to keep moving forward here. The game actually is a little bit close. It looks like the enemy of your bot lane is getting really dumped on. Kind of looks to me like the Ezreal is going AP. Interesting. Okay, I think using your ultimate there maybe wasn't the best choice, just because Yeah, see, I think if you had had your execution there, you maybe could have gone all in on that Lee Sin. Now, the reasoning is probably to get more tower damage, which is fine. But I think you would have been just fine. Okay, there's the Black Cleaver. I think you would have been a little better off just kind of sticking with your guns and saving your ultimate to fight champions. Okay, so again, there's nothing wrong with Black Cleaver on Riven, but I think I would have preferred going for something like Hydra or Last Whisper. I think Black Cleaver is a much better late game option. Also, another reason why I don't think Black Cleaver was the best choice in this game is look at your team. You've got Kayle, Lysandra, and Ezreal who's going AP. You don't have a single other champion that can benefit from the armor shred. The main purpose of Black Cleaver, or the main benefit, is when you've got a full AD team and you want armor penetration to apply for your allies. You know, if you had an AD mid, an AD jungler, or an AD carry, you know, that would be a much better purchase. But as it is, I don't necessarily think that Black Cleaver is the best choice here. Alright, let's talk about this all-in right here. So, I'm just going to pause it. So first of all, I think you're in a good position here. We've got Ezreal and Thresh, and this Varus is going to face check. What I would have preferred you do, let's slow this down, I would have preferred that you pop your ultimate right now. And then you can start with your W, Q auto. Looks like you just go for all 3 Qs. I don't think you're staggering any autos in between. That's quite a bit of damage you're missing out on. So make sure to you know, you've got 3 stacks of your passive, and then you decide to throw on your ultimate. You get kicked. It just kind of goes really badly from here. Oh, I think I just messed everything up. So I think that, you know, definitely think if you would have popped your ultimate right away, you make sure to stagger autos and take advantage of your passive. I definitely think you could have very easily gotten this kill on Varus. I mean, look at how low he got. If you just would have gotten 1 more auto attack before you ulted, that would have easily been a kill. And then you could have turned on the Brand or the Lee Sin, but instead, you get picked off, and it ends badly for your team. So I think a little bit better use of your abilities there could have for sure cleaned up that situation. But definitely something that is easy to fix. You know, using your ultimate right away is always a lot better, so then you can keep that execution for the end, but then you also gain those buffs that are pretty significant. Ooh, unfortunate that Thresh missed that hook, but I guess it didn't actually matter. Good team play there. Let's get back to our Riven player. I think that this guy doesn't really know what he's doing. Oh, that bugged out. Alright. See if you use your ultimate right away here. Looks like you're sitting on it again. Yeah, it's available. And then you only use it at the end. Yeah, see, I think I would have definitely preferred, again, you use your ultimate right away, so make sure you can get the maximum benefit from it. You know, you get all that flat AD for all of those autos and all those abilities. Again, good objective play here. I like that you've been really trying to take towers. It's been a clear focus of yours. Now roaming, the roaming has been really effective as well. Like I said earlier, you know, one of the best ways to, if you're doing really, really well in a solo lane, roaming around and trying to spread your advantage across the map is just a really smart choice. Now, okay, see, there we go. There you actually used your ultimate right away. That was very good. And now you should be able to get this kill. What the world? Do you have your Wind Slash? Nope. Oh. Are we going to get this kill? Oh my. Good job cutting back to your ally. Ooh, very good kill ultimate. That was a money kill ult. Careful for... So much Riven. Alright, there's the kill. I want to watch to see if you... Okay, so there we go. You pop your ultimate. Okay. So, again, not quite the most optimal use of your abilities. Popping your ultimate early there was really good. Then I would prefer you to use your whole combo and save your Wind Slash until right now. So if you had your Wind Slash, you could pop it on him and he'd be dead. You get so much more bonus damage there. Alright, we pick up that kill. Nice job. I also wonder if you had gone for something other than Black Cleaver, I think you'd be hitting a little harder. You know, if you had prioritized Tiamat or Bloodthirster or even Last Whisper, I think that would have been a little bit better. Just sitting on the Brutalizer in general is a good choice. Okay, there's the BF, so looks like we're going for Bloodthirster, that's totally fine. Riven makes really good use of all the lifesteal, so... And the shield is really nice too. It gives Riven a lot of shields. Makes it Riven deceptively tanky. Alright, again, we used our ultimate just to push down the towers. Not a huge fan of that. Getting the bonus AD is really nice, but I think just in general it's a little bit better to try to save it for when you're fighting these champions, because then you're a lot stronger. You know, Riven's power level with her ultimate up is obscenely high, so you definitely don't want to waste that cooldown if you can help it. Looks like your team is getting some nice picks here. Looks like they're going to be okay without you. Oh, they did get one kill. A couple of kills. Okay. Waiting in base for a little bit long there. I'm not sure what your gold value is at, or if I can even check. I'm not exactly sure why we chose to not finish off our BT. One thing to keep in mind is that components like this, like a BF sword, you know, you're getting pretty much 1-to-1 gold efficiency. Like, it's just 100% gold efficient, which is fine, but it's not better or worse than it could be. But if you finish something like Bloodthirster, then that's when items start to become like hyper efficient, because you get all these really nice passives. You know, the shield and the lifesteal that you gain from BT, like, sometimes it can be even difficult to quantify how valuable that is. So, would have liked to see you finish that a little bit more. Maybe you didn't quite have the gold, I'm not exactly sure. But anyways, being efficient at base is always a good thing. Just pushing out these waves. It's a decent ward. Just a little thing. I'm kind of, when I am pushing in top lane, I would prefer to get that ward right here. I think this is a much more valuable ward, because, I'm going to just pause this for a second, because this ward, nobody can get into this position without going through this choke point, unless maybe they circle around here. But I still think that this ward is a lot more beneficial because it covers this choke point. Okay, so again, I think we used our ultimate to push down the tower, which I think could be, I think it's just better off to save it. Yep, see, there we use our ultimate to push down the tower. Now, yeah, see, and using it right there for the damage really is not the way to do it. You want to see, now you're basically forced to turn and run because you don't have any power, whereas, you know, look at your item, you have an item advantage. Either way, any which way you swing it. I mean, I really would have preferred... Okay, and you do end up picking up the kill through a nice play from Kale. But hey, you used your abilities a lot better. I think you could have won that 1v1. Now, you're up 60 creeps on this enemy Riven, but it hasn't necessarily translated into a lot more power. You know, part of it, I think, is just because the Riven didn't go all the way up for the Black Cleaver upgrade. Yeah, see, now she's almost on her way to a Last Whisper, which is really where you want to be. You know, you want to get that Last Whisper as soon as you can. Sitting in base for a little bit too long. I want to check your gold value. 1,600 gold. I'm not sure if you're DC'd or waiting for another... Yeah, you could have had that BF sword a couple of seconds earlier. So make sure you get out of base really quickly. This is something that kind of goes unnoticed a lot, but spending as little time in base as possible means you spend as much time out on the map as possible. And that is always a good thing. I like that you are roaming. I think that is really good. Still not the best use of your abilities. You used your ultimate pretty early there, and now you don't have your ults, even though these targets are getting a little bit low. And now you're just kind of in trouble. Gonna get stun locked and killed. Let's watch this one more time. I really think that, you know, first, okay, so we kind of get chunked there, but, you know, just turn, I think, yeah, not the best use of your abilities. I would have much preferred I think it just would have been better off to just stand and fight the Riven. So I want to look and see what you're looking at. It looks like you can see your teammates are getting collapsed on a little bit. This is a 3v3. I really would have preferred that you just stand and fight this Riven. I think that really would have been the best choice. Because, you know, she's right there. I think you have definitely a gold and an item advantage ahead of her. She's isolated. I just think it would have been better to stand and fight, you know, and if not, try to, you know, sit on your ultimate a little bit longer. Don't throw out the wind slash unless somebody gets low. But thankfully, Kale is pushing down. Interesting support brand going with teleport. Very interesting choice. They have a lot of kills bot lane. Alright, so now we're back up again. Didn't actually buy anything. Not sure, I guess we just didn't have any gold for anything. Even if getting a longsword, you want to try to make as much use out of that gold as you can. See, I think this game is a lot closer than it really should be. That guy just kind of suicided. I think you can finish this guy off. Yep, nice job. That was good. Again, you could have used your ultimate a little bit quicker, but I've already explained that point. I don't need to harp on it anymore. Let's see if we can turn this into an objective. I think we... Nope. Okay, so we get picked off there. And we actually... We see where this Riven is. So... Not sure if we just weren't watching, if we were watching down here, but... Just seems like a little bit of a awareness mistake there. Yeah, I think it would have been better to stay with this Kale and try to push down these towers. I think that's what I would have preferred you going with, but... We saw Kale on the minimap, so I think, no, sorry, not Kale. We saw Riven. We knew where she was. I think, just making sure that we take advantage of our awareness there would have been a better choice. Kale should have just stood and fought that right from the beginning. She had the power. Oh, Ezreal. Yikes. Oof, not a big fan of his build either. He's having all sorts of problems with this game. This game is a lot closer than it really needs to be. Oh, what do we... Okay. Do we have our ult? We do, and then we... Alright, so pretty much the same feedback I've given before. Is that definitely the most optimal time is just pop your ult right away. There's no reason to sit on it. Right here, use your ult, and then use your full combo. Make sure you weave in your auto attacks. You could have easily gotten a whole bunch of kills out of this, and you get the finisher there on Riven. But I think it could have gone even better, just with a little bit smarter use of your abilities. Especially on a champion like Riven, that really requires good use of your abilities. Okay, it looks like we're going for an Infinity Edge, which is interesting. I really think I would have preferred Last Whisper in this situation. I mean, Last Whisper is just so good on Riven in general. Especially as the game goes on, it becomes a little bit harder to weave in your auto attacks with your abilities, so... Oh, alright, we get picked off a little bit there. Okay, a couple of kills traded. Interesting. Alright, so your team is doing a nice job of pushing down some of these turrets. Okay, so we finished our Infinity Edge. Yeah, especially, I think the only reason why you would want to go Infinity Edge is if you're going to get a, not a Black Cleaver, but the alternative, what's it called? Youmuu's Ghostblade. Youmuu's has some crit, so, and it gives you the attack speed too, which can be nice. That makes Riven into a pretty scary duelist, Because not only do you have all this ability damage, but your autos actually are going to hit pretty hard, and you have all this move speed to go along with your dashes. So if you're going to go Infinity Edge, I really would have preferred going with Ghostblade. You know, and now you've got another slot for Last Whisper, and then you're going to want a defensive item, maybe GA or Banshees. Okay, so we've got a nice fight here. So pop your ult. There's no reason to, yeah, we sit on it for too long. Go turn it. Oh, yeah. See, it works out in the end, but definitely not the best use of your abilities. You want to really use your ult right away, and then use your core combo, your Q, your E, your W. You know, ideally, you're probably going to want to lead with your E, Q auto, Q auto, Q auto, W auto. You know, whatever combo you decide to go with, make sure you're spacing auto attacks in between your abilities. There are a lot of different combos on Riven, so it's you know, that's one of the things about playing Riven is you really have to become accustomed to her combos. Okay, so you take the inhib. Now, I really would have preferred you guys back out here. Yeah, see, we just stayed. Wait, there's no reason. So, yeah, we're gonna get out, but there's just no reason to make this a little bit more. Maybe you aren't gonna get out. Is Varus gonna ult? I think we are gonna live. Okay, so whenever you take an inhibitor, especially in a situation like this, where you've taken one, you pretty much always want to just back out. Once you've taken an inhibitor, you're not going to accomplish anything more. It's almost impossible to go from taking one inhibitor to taking Nexus turrets. That's just something that just doesn't really happen. You know, getting that much deeper into the base is really hard. You basically want to take the inhibitor, back out, go take any objectives, take the buffs, take Dragon, maybe think about going for Baron, and then you back out, you buy, and you come back, and you take another. And once you take a second inhibitor, the base is much easier to crack. Interesting use of the Ezreal ultimate. Ooh, and he's going to go for a Triforce now? Yikes. That Ezreal build. Not so good. Okay, so now it looks like we are going for quite a bit of health. Not sure if health is the right call here, and a couple of reasons why. You know, I've already explained that resistances are so much better on Riven just because of the shields. Think of the shields you have with Bloodthirster and Riven's E. You have a tremendous amount of shielding, so you really want to make sure you're getting resistances to back up those shields. Next, they've got a Brand and a Varus and a Lee Sin. Like, all of these champions have, and the Brand has Lander's Torment, so a lot of percentage max health damage on their team. So stacking health is actually going to be working against you in terms of a defensive stat, because your opponent is itemizing against it perfectly. If you had gone for Banshees, I think that would have been a much better alternative. Oh, weren't quite able to manage that as well as we could have. I think Kale's really just got to... She's going to get herself killed here. Let's watch this one more time from your perspective, see if we can pull anything out. Okay, so Lee comes in. You know, if there's ever a time... Okay, use your ultimate pretty early on your Ignite. And a little too early on the Wind Slash. I think you really could have finished him off. And then you would have had your abilities up, or your combo up to go after the Varus or the Brand. You're using it a little too early there, I think. Okay, it looks like your team does a nice job of cleaning up... Oh, Brand had his... Oh, yikes. Support Brand, carrying. Brand does have a lot of damage, even without a lot of items. Man, Ezreal wasn't there. Okay, so... Frozen Mallet. Alright, so... here are my thoughts on Frozen Mallet on Riven. I guess in general, I think Frozen Mallet is pretty bad. Just as like a general item. And on Riven, I think it's especially bad. You know, I've talked about the reason why health isn't so good. But then let's talk about the slow. I think that of all the champions in the game, Riven makes not so good use of an on-hit slow with auto attacks. And here's why. Riven has a billion dashes. And so she doesn't need a slow to stick to a target. She can use her Q and her E to make sure that... That's a free kill. She can use her Q and her E to make sure that, you know, it just... She has so many dashes, so many ways to stay up on a target that an on-hit slow really isn't going to help her at all. So I really would have preferred for your build to go, you know, get the Brutalizer, stay on that. CDR boots are totally fine. Bloodthirster is totally fine. I think your next item really needs to be Last Whisper. So you've got Brutalizer, BT, CDR boots, Last Whisper. And then from there, you can think about what you want to do from there. You know, you've got a lot of different options, really. You could finish Yomu's, you could do another Brutalizer for Black Cleaver and Yomu's, you could do 2 lifesteal items. You just have a lot of options. You know, you could go Hydra and Bloodthirster, kind of be like this really difficult to kill lifesteal tank, and then finish off with the Banshees. Definitely think that would have been the way to use the build. You know, kind of like, I think I like this Riven's build a lot more, even though she didn't do very well. I think if you would have gone for this build, you could have carried even harder. And just to kind of recapitalize, you know, using our abilities in the most optimal way, I think really could have helped you out a lot. You did a nice job of, you know, once you got a lane advantage, trying to roam around the map and help your team secure kills. So just try to continue to encourage that, you know, good objective focused play, especially, you know, because Kale was so strong. You know, so staying with Kale and trying to give her backup. You guys could be a roaming death squad. Because the game definitely dragged on a lot longer than it was, a lot closer than it really needed to be, given just how far down this Riven really was. You know, his brand was the biggest problem. You can just start focusing him, given, you know, as Riven, if you get a Negatron or maybe even a Hex Drinker, brand really would not become very much of a problem. Using your ultimate a little bit smarter, popping it early, and sitting on the Wind Slash, using your abilities and your autos to make sure you're weaving in auto attacks to take advantage of your passive, and then using your Wind Slash at the end to secure kills. But overall, some good gameplay. I think you're in the right track. Just a couple things to polish up on, and you'll be improving in no time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll see you soon. Bye.